I'm David Marsh. Welcome to Exploring the Human Journey.
Exploring the Human Journey.
I was a patient long before I was a practitioner, and I was really touched by the medicine in such a way that I was willing to leave everything behind. I worked in corporate America for about 11 years. I was living and working in New York City, and that was a tough reality for me. I had a variety of different issues that were going on, emotional and physical. So I was dealing with anxiety and stress, and there were times where I was depressed. I had a lot of lower back pain, knee pain. I had severe acid reflux, insomnia. One day, one of my friends wrote on his Facebook page about this acupuncture clinic in Union Square and these amazing treatments he was having. And something kind of struck a chord in me at that time. And I started doing some research. And I researched acupuncture and anxiety, acupuncture and acid reflux, acupuncture and lower back pain. And it turned out that acupuncture was able to alleviate and in many cases resolve a lot of the issues that I've been living with mostly for my life. So I went down to the clinic and I started getting treatment. And after the first treatment, I felt better. My anxiety and stress started to decrease. I really saw firsthand what this medicine can offer me, and it completely changed my life. So it's been this journey for me, and it started in 2010. And I ended my schooling in 2013 down in Tucson. I've been able to learn a lot about myself, and I've been able to learn a lot about presence. And that's been the next frontier for me, is teaching mindfulness and presence after seeing that so much suffering has been taking place by an unguarded mind. I specialize in treating emotions, and one of the things I learned about really quickly was at the heart of anxiety, stress, and depression is a lack of presence. We go throughout our day and we're so distracted. We're always thinking about the past, or we're always worried about the future. Well, thinking about the future, worrying about the future is at the heart of anxiety. Thinking about the past and ruminating about the past, that's at the heart of depression. What's the point of all the stuff that you're doing in your life if you can't appreciate and enjoy it? And you can never appreciate and enjoy anything if you're not being fully present in the moment with wherever you are, however you are, or with whomever you are. It's just not possible, because you're gonna be where you're at and you're gonna be thinking about the next place. You're gonna be setting goals in the future. You're gonna be thinking about the past. What you're doing is you're losing the moment. So presence gives you a very unique perspective and perception that helps alleviate the suffering that's been taking place at your own hands, not at anyone else's.
Awesome, Paul. That was great, man. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you said you did a move from Manhattan to Tucson, and that was a culture shock.
I did. Back in 2010, I made the decision to leave Manhattan. I was working and living in New York City, and I decided that the way things were unfolding and the trajectory that my life was headed in didn't feel right. And a few things lined up in a very beautiful way. I wasn't married, I didn't have any kids, there wasn't anything really holding me back. So I decided that it was time to change. A few years preceding that, of course, I was getting acupuncture, learning about the medicine, and then making the decision that I wanted to be a part of the medicine.
Yeah, and you were sharing that you were kind of in the corporate ladder, and you were you had the dream job, you had the money, you had the things that people aspire to.
I certainly had quite a few things.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned early on was that there was no amount of money that was going to necessarily make me happy.
Oh, wow.
I just was able to buy more stuff. And I'll tell you, Manhattan was a fun experience.
Yeah. So you've got the city life, the city that never sleeps. Things are active. You've got friends, you've got acquaintances, you're doing activities, but something is your unrest.
Something was definitely off for a while. I am quite sensitive, and Manhattan is a very loud place to be.
Sure.
And I was always adverse to my sensibilities. So I never really knew what calm was. I think I always was living with this low level of anxiety that would kind of spike here and there. It was just too much stimulus constantly. So acupuncture was the only thing that would really calm me down. And it was the one thing that gave me substantial relief and started resolving many of the ailments that I had for years.
Now, you said you had a friend, Facebook connection, or somebody said something.
One of my good friends on Facebook wrote about these amazing experiences he was having with the medicine, with acupuncture. And I became really interested because I knew that there were certain things that were off, that Western medicine was not giving me the resolution for. It was like a 12-hour fix. So I started
take this pill and you'll be better.
So I started Google searching acupuncture and anxiety, acupuncture and low back pain. I had really bad acid reflux. Once I started getting treatment, within 6 months, about 75% of my issues were flat out resolved. And I was able to really lower my anxiety and stress levels. So after 6 months, I decided to go for another 6 months. And it was at that point that I knew that something bigger was happening. I started making friends with my practitioner and also the owner of the clinic. And I started asking questions about how it all works. And once I started seeing all the pieces, I started to think about, well, how can I be a part of this? And I started to look into schools, and I decided that I would look into schools on the West Coast. And I ended up going to California in April of 2010. And I looked at 4 or 5 schools there. I came to Arizona, I looked at 2 schools, and I settled in Tucson. I had no idea what Tucson would be like. So anyone who's been there can understand why moving from Manhattan to Tucson would be culture shock to a very significant degree.
Population, weather, mindset of the people.
The whole thing. So 3 full years there, and I was ready to get out. All right. But the good thing about Tucson was that was all that I did there was study. And I had 3 years to myself. So there was a lot of deep introspection about who I was, how I got there, and preparing me to be the practitioner that I was ultimately destined to be. But the only way to get there was for me to work deeply on myself and to resolve a lot of the core issues that I brought with me to Tucson. And that was really hard. I don't think most people are prepared for what introspection is. It is a painful process of taking ownership of the things that have happened to you without placing blame on other people. And so there was
that's a tough one.
That went on for a long time. 3 years can seem like a lot longer when you're by yourself and you're just starting to figure out, what it is you want to do with your life.
It's easy to blame other people for things that you need to take care of.
I think that that's a very humanistic quality, is to want to place blame on things outside of our reality. And that's easy, but that's not usually that's not usually the truth.
It's a nice escapism.
Exactly. So it didn't take me long to start practicing in clinic and honing in my style about how I wanted to provide treatment for the people that I'm working with, the people that I'm supporting. And so I started early on already working with anxiety, stress, and depression in clinic.
Because that's the space where you were coming from. And you were using your pain to help people through theirs, because you're like, I can understand that.
You have to walk a mile in people's shoes ultimately to really understand what they're going through. And acupuncture and the practitioner that originally treated me specialized in anxiety, stress, and depression. So I started to model a little bit after her style, but I expanded because I realized that I needed to not only take what was given to me, but make it my own. And that's what I did in school clinic. But I was also working on myself extensively. So I was getting acupuncture twice a week. I was taking herbs. It didn't stop. It went on and on and on. And acupuncture school is not easy. And I went to a 3-year accelerated program, so that was even more difficult. The day after I graduated, I moved up to Scottsdale. I opened up my clinic 6 weeks later. And
surprise, millions of people came every day, right?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most defining moments for me was when I opened up the clinic and I didn't have any patients.
Wow.
That was a real gut check. But it turns out that I had the intestinal fortitude to figure that out. But, there was a lot of self-inflicted suffering that took place because I was so focused on not having the patient load that I wanted, that it created more anxiety for me. So I started to work on that as well.
So you get to the space where you're like, dreams come true, I have my own thing. And then you start to work through, oh, I'm having more anxiety again.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. But little by little, I was able to plug away and create a patient base for myself and specialized in anxiety, stress, and depression. Now, being able to sit in front of people day in and day out, listening to their stories, I started to notice all these commonalities, especially when it came to emotional challenges. It just turned out that there's a tremendous lack of presence, and it's not really taught to us at all.
Yeah, especially in this Western society.
We're always so focused on the future of the past.
Achieve.
So when I started to really understand what the core issues were, it became very evident to me that if I can just teach the patients that I'm working with, and also with myself, understand presence and really start catching myself in the moment as I start worrying about the future or I start ruminating about the past, there was a tremendous amount of relief that I could gain in those moments. And I started seeing it with myself, and I started figuring out a way to create a very tangible offering to my patients so that they can use it in their lives. Acupuncture is a beautiful medicine. It's very relaxing. It helps to calm the nervous system down. Really what it does is it helps your body switch over from the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and relax. Most people are pegged on the sympathetic nervous system. They're hyperreactive. And it's understandable because they went through a life where there was trauma, where there were threats, wherever it is, and their nervous system got imprinted. We have to get to a point where we see this and we have to work on it, but we can only work on it in the moment. So as I was giving these acupuncture treatments, I was also layering in a lot of good information with tips and tools that would later become the presence projects that I would build out. And actually it all unfolded in the most beautiful of ways. So I started to realize that one of my roles, aside from being an acupuncturist and an herbalist, was that I needed to teach presence in a very succinct, easy way. I realized that my job was to sit on the front lines and to teach people and to awaken them to their presence. Because many of us go through life unawakened and asleep at the wheel. Many of us are dominated day in and day out by our egos. And until someone sits in front of us and explains what that voice is in our heads and what to do with it in the moment, we are completely dominated by it. So I have had the good fortune of countless patients repeating the same things over and over again, allowing me to formulate a project that I can offer them and the world so that they can understand the power of the present moment.
That is beautiful. Dude, your journey is so beautiful. You get to a space where you're growing in that corporate, monetary, the financial, that very ego construct of look at all the things that I've done. But you have this unrest. There's something within you. You know, there's your soul. It's like a soul level. Your soul is yearning. And then you take that space that you're in, that anxiety, you figure out how to get the education, how to get the experience, and then you transmute that and you take a risk. As an entrepreneur, you're like, wow, I'm just going to do this. Then you step into a space, super scary. It's not paved with ease. There's work to it. But you find that journey of your soul, then you can transform that pain into the ability to help others. Yes. That's incredible.
One of the things that I've learned very early on, and that has been repeated to me and to the patients that I work with, is that the way life is that we get all these hints and tips along the way. People will repeat the same things to us. Multiple people will repeat the same things.
The
synchronicities of life. But if we don't pay attention, life will eventually come by and pull the rug out from underneath our feet.
Boom.
So really, I think that leading up to my transition out from New York City there was multiple experiences of the rug being pulled from underneath my feet. And I was made to be so uncomfortable that there was no choice. So one of my life goals in this moment is to not have to put myself through those experiences and to make people aware of all the signs and synchronicities that exist right in front of them so that they can proactively make the changes in their life so that the changes aren't made for them. And that's really powerful because that will reduce a whole level of suffering.
Yeah. Now, what I love about presence is that, boy, it's so active in my life, is that regret about the past and that worry about the future. And even though I know these principles and I've heard these things before, I'm like, I got to be reminded of this literally daily, hourly. Don't be concerned. Don't be stressed out. Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, it's okay. Be kind and gentle to yourself. I mean, that's a work in progress.
Yeah, so it is work, but here's the thing. One of the first blog posts that I wrote on presence had a question in it, and it was a question that I was asking all of my patients, and it's a question that I ask myself many times a day. It's, are you being present? Are you being present?
Beautiful.
You ask yourself that question to each and every thought. Does this thought have anything to do with the present moment? Does this feeling have anything to do with the present moment? Am I being present? That takes you out of the thought stream. You are no longer the victim of that thought stream. You are now the observer and you're questioning it. Very powerful. And so I started asking this question over and over again, and I realized that this question, are you being present, has the power to shift people into presence at a moment's notice. And it became the title and the name of my project. Are you being present?
And that's your .com, is that right?
Yes, areyoubeinpresent.com. I put together about 48 podcasts. They're on iTunes, they're on YouTube. It's a project that is in its infancy, but I have seen firsthand how a question like that can snap someone right out of that ego thought stream. And that's one of the things I talk about a lot, is that we have this voice in our heads. And you can only be observant of it if you're being really present. We all have it. It doesn't make you crazy. You might have an issue if you have multiple voices in your head, but we all have one really loud one. And it doesn't tell us good things. It usually makes us afraid. It creates anger and frustration. And because it has its radar out, and it's always looking for things to take issue with. The ego is a very powerful construct of our personalities. But here's the thing. It's not as useful now as it was when we were living on the Serengeti, when we were being chased by lions. We have no true existential threats. And because of that, the ego has lost some of its purpose. Now, we don't have to go into Freud and what the ego is, the superego, the id. That's not important. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, that's okay. We just have to have a very basic understanding of what this voice in our head is and what we can do with it. I give the analogy that the voice in your head is like a 3 or 4-year-old child. Has a very loud voice, likes to get its way, likes to be in control, knows your triggers, knows when you're tired, knows when you're hungry, knows when you're frustrated, and knows exactly what to make you think so that it can trigger an emotional response. Then you get looped and then you're lost. Okay, so we have to be the observer of our thoughts. And what does that mean? You have to watch them. You cannot be so emotionally tied to them because that voice is not you. If you can hear that voice in your head, is that you? No. Okay, it is not, it's not you.
I love that. I love that you're giving presence to that, because that's one thing I've learned in yoga teacher training, is that you are the observer of your thoughts, not your thoughts. And that allows you to step back and go, oh, okay, I'm angry, or I'm happy, or I'm hungry.
So in the moment, and only in the moment, it is okay to feel whatever feelings that you're feeling if they're relevant about the experience in front of your face. Where we get lost is when we have emotional feelings towards something that happened in the past or that's going to happen in the future. That's where we get lost. That is a lack of presence. So people ask me, well, I got angry in this moment. And I ask them, well, was the anger about what was happening in front of you? Yes? Well, then it's okay. But did you hold on to that anger? Okay, well, that's collateral damage. You need to let go of that. And there's a lot of work to be done. But we don't get hard on ourselves if we get a little unraveled. Because the ego wants you to be hard on yourself, because that just creates more of a loop. You have to just be the parent to yourself that you always wanted. And in that moment, in that present moment, the parent comes in, pats you on the back, tells you everything's okay, asks you if you're being present, asks you what you need in that moment, And that's what you work on. Because when something happens in your life, the only reaction that's really suitable is that, okay, this is happening. What do we need to do about it?
Yeah,
Not, oh my God, what are we going to, like, it's always been like this. It's always going to be like this.
Yeah.
No. We have to shift into the moment and deal with whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because that's all that there is. That's it. All we have are present moments.
Yeah.
We have this moment. Then this moment gets shifted out into the next present moment. But my goal has always been to provide succinct and easy tools that people can follow and use in the moment to treat themselves. Because to me, presence is medicine. And mindfulness is this big keyword. But what does mindfulness mean? It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to watch my mind, okay? It's a whole state of being.
Yeah.
But you cannot get to be mindful if you have not worked on presence.
Yeah.
Because if you ever go to a yoga class, you can look all around. Most people are like completely signed out. They're going through the motions. They're not really being present in the flow of it, feeling their bodies, watching their minds. And that's not a critique, but that's one place that you would think.
You think there's presence
Exactly,
there.
because that's all they're talking about.
Yeah.
But talk is just that. That's why we have to give the people tools that they can use. And that's why I've created presence tools. And I've spoken on that in my podcasts. And I speak on that extensively to the patients that I work with, because that empowers you to use that, to treat yourself, to watch yourself, to heal yourself. Because I can give the best acupuncture treatment, I can give the best herbs, whatever. If you leave my office and you get caught up in something and you let your mind completely dominate you, and then it creates all this anxiety, which creates cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which creates inflammation, then you have inflammation, and then that's a whole different thing.
You're right back into a different paradigm where you started from.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love when you're talking about the anger that you release. Are you angry about that thing? Well, sometimes I've observed in my life where I'm angry about something, some ego construct, and then I'll lash out at a loved one, a family member, and I'm like, I'm not even mad at this person, but I'm upset about something else. And that I love the way you give presence to that presence.
Yeah. Well, really working on yourself gives you a better understanding of why you're feeling the way you do. Now, if you're lashing out at some point about something that has nothing to do with what's in front of you, that is a beautiful learning opportunity. I don't really believe in problems. I believe in challenges, and I believe in opportunities. Because if we can reframe the experiences that we have, especially the words that we use about them, we can get a better feeling space, and therefore we can learn from them. So like, if something unraveled, if I got mad, if I said something, it's not like I'm gonna walk away and be really angry at myself. I'm not. I'm gonna look at it and say, well, why did this happen? What do I need to do about it? Is there anything I can do in this moment in regards to whatever took place? If the answer is no, I have to work on learning to let it go. That's it. Ultimately, like, your life depends upon the relationship that you have with yourself. Because the internal state of your life will always mirror the external. They're one and the same.
That's good.
And that's why we have to be really cognizant of what we're thinking about and how we're feeling and what we're doing for ourselves at all times. We can't turn that off. We have to remember that we have to prioritize mindfulness and presence and all these things, because those are the arbiters. Those can be the arbiters of how your trajectory will go. Because how you feel when you walk around Earth will show, things will show up. You'll have a better idea of how to co-creating and manifesting and all these things. But all those things are only possible with presence.
When you're staying in that space. Now, I love that. Give presence to that. You turned me on to the book Journey of Souls. And so I love that it gives the overall arcing mindset of this spiritual reality, and then we're here to have these experiences. And so I used to have the mindset that I couldn't wait till I got out of here to go to heaven or whatever that paradigm was. Now I want to be here so much. I want to be present. I want to experience this because I'm realizing my soul came here to have an experience. And so how do you feel that journey of your soul and that ego is tied into this character that you're playing?
Journey of Souls is a tremendous book, and I have purchased it and recommended it to many people. It's not for everyone, because you have to, in some way...
Well, it was for me, and I loved it.
It should be for everyone,
Yeah.
but it challenges reality in some way.
Absolutely.
And if you have a more closed way of seeing the world, it's going to be difficult for you, or for anyone really, to see beyond the boundary of what you can believe to be possible. The first time I read Journey of Souls was probably back in 2008, and it was one of the catalysts for my change. Once I started remembering, who I am, where I've come from, and that a lot of the things that are happening in front of me are not necessarily as real as I perceive them to be. We only think that way because, it's tangible. This feels real. But really, touch is just sending a signal to my brain, which is being interpreted.
Yep.
But when we look at the trajectory of our life and we implement something like Journey of Souls, we understand that we're basically in school and that we're constantly learning. And as bad as things seem, everything is relative to everything else.
Yeah.
But the beauty of presence is that everything is constantly changing anyway. So no matter how bad anything seems in the moment, it's never, ever, ever gonna last.
Yeah.
And that's the reminder.
Beauty.
And that's why when you ask yourself, am I being present? Be present in the moment. Presence doesn't mean that every moment feels good. It doesn't mean that at all.
Yeah.
Because some moments are not gonna feel good and they're not supposed to feel good. Presence means that you remember that that moment isn't gonna last. But, seeing the world macrocosmically, you get a much better idea of the interactions that we have and the experiences that we have and the memories that we have and the life that we have and how it's meaningful in some ways, but ultimately meaningless in other ways. It all depends upon your level of attachment or detachment.
That's good.
The Buddhists talk about how attachment is the root of all suffering. And I don't think it's possible to become fully detached in this reality, at least from my perspective, because, in Western society, we like our things. We become a little attached to our stuff.
Yeah, I like to shower every day and sleep in a bed. Yeah.
But I think that if we can look at detachment from the emotional space, and not necessarily saying you're going to become numb from your feelings, but detaching from the attachment you have towards the people, places, and things in your life to allow them to be, that's a beautiful thing. Again, it only takes place through presence. So we have to ask ourselves, is the way that we're feeling due to us being overly attached, us having expectations to how we think things should be, versus how things really are? And that will provide a significant amount of relief. And one of the things I talk about extensively in my podcast series is self-inflicted suffering. How much of the suffering that you're experiencing is due to you?
Yeah.
And by and large, I'd say most people, at least in Western society, the suffering is due to their own minds, so due to themselves. That's not to say that some people aren't suffering at the hands of others. I'm not discounting that. But what I'm saying is that there is a large portion of society that really has no one to blame but the interaction and experiences they're having within their own mind, within their own head.
That's good. You have probably become an expert in the emotions as you've seen emotions come up and be released. Grief is something that is a real integral part of the human emotion. And I like in conversations with God, he gives presence to grief as something that you need to let work through, but you don't want to hold it or push it away because it turns into depression. How have you dealt with grief in your life?
I've treated quite a few patients who have been grieving, and I also looked at my own grieving process. Grief is really important in the sense that, first of all, it's a relative experience. Okay, we need to understand it because it's going to be a part of your reality at some point. But when I look at grief and when I'm working with patients and when I'm reflecting on it, it's important to understand that it has to be a beginning, middle, and end to the process. Okay, so when we're working on grief, we have to be somewhat understanding of where we are in that. Acupuncture is beautiful in the sense where it can help provide some relief. It does interact with the emotions. When we look at grief, we look at the lungs, and we can work with that channel, those meridians, to help kind of smooth out some of the grief a person's experiencing. But we would never want to take it away from them because it's a very valuable experience. But the other thing that we try to inject when someone's grieving is presence. Okay, because there's a lot of rumination, when it comes to grief, and it's totally understandable because there's some kind of loss. But we have to be really present with the experience that we're feeling in the moment that we're feeling it, and ultimately be okay with it. You know, so and I've seen people go have a real tough time with grief, and it didn't have to be as bad as it was, but that was their decision. And ultimately, if we're looking at their soul journey, we understand that they're just on their path, and that we don't want to ever interfere with their path. We want to support them on their path, and we want to help them on their journey, and then let them go further down the path. So that's kind of I look at that as my job too, is I'm sort of like a journeyman, where I help people get back on their paths, and I help them take a couple steps down, and then I let them go. Because I'm not here to build dependencies. I'm here ultimately to empower people so that they have all the knowledge and information to treat themselves.
Oh, that's great. Now, Paul is very kind. He invited me to his clinic, and he gave me a session. And the first thing that you do is you go, well, let me take your pulse. And you go, well, that's interesting. You're dealing with grief. And I was like, what the heck? Now, there was an emotion within me. There was a story that has been created because of a circumstance, and I have felt the energy of grief. And I've just been trying to feel it and let it go through, and not to resist it, but just to let it process through. And you picked up on that. I'm like, what? So that was incredible. I don't know how you do that. To me, it was a magic trick. To you, it was science. Give some presence to how you have the sensitivity to feeling like that.
That's a really good question. I would tell you that there's definitely one of my gifts that I believe is a gift is intuition to an extent. But I also have a very extensive training that took a while to hone in. Pulse taking in Chinese medicine is probably one of the more difficult diagnostic tools.
Wow.
We use tongue and pulse. But Chinese medicine is a very observant medicine. So you start seeing things over and over and over again. The medicine is thousands of years old. So by deductive reasoning, if this many people are going through this experience and their pulse shows up this way and it's in this position, there's a good chance that they're going to be experiencing this. I would tell you that I use a few different facets of the health and well-being of the patient sitting in front of me to kind of understand what their pulse is trying to tell me, and really what's being asked of me, what kind of treatment I need to provide to them to help them move forward or deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with in that moment. The beauty for me of the treatment space is that I'm so present there that when I leave that door, when I go through that door, that's all done to me. So I just left it all there. I don't take any of it with me, but I make sure to be there 100%. And it's been quite an amazing journey. I've worked with many people who have significantly changed, and they've thanked me. I don't necessarily take responsibility for that. I feel like I am a vessel for the universe, for life, for God, for whomever you want to put that to, so that I can help that person get through whatever it is, or give them whatever they need in that moment and leave it in that moment. And that's why I also teach presence, because I feel like I want to give a really cohesive offering. I also speak on nutritional guidance. I'm a lifestyle coach. I do a lot of cupping. So my treatments are treatments. It's not just acupuncture. And the name of my clinic is Above and Beyond Acupuncture, because to me, it's really important to go above and beyond for every single person that steps foot in my clinic, no matter what they're there for. Many people come into my clinic and are not there for anxiety, stress, and depression, or to learn presence. Ultimately, that's what they're given. And
because your juice comes through, doesn't it?
Exactly. And it strikes a chord, and then they become curious, and then they want to learn more. Exactly. So great. And I found ways to apply it to almost every different situation, and it's been beautiful. So your cupping work is that was amazing. I've seen the cups where you suck the air out of it, and then you did the type where you take the oxygen out with fire.
You put it on the skin, and my back goes, it really sucks it up there. And then you rub the fascia tissue through the back to release the tissue, kind of work through that modality.
Yeah. I do a lot of running cupping.
Yeah.
To me, I find it to be more traditional and a lot more effective than stationary cupping. I will do stationary cupping if need be. Sometimes I combine the two together. But when I was introduced to running cupping in acupuncture school, a light went off, and I realized that like this modality is, first of all, it's amazing. Second of all, it has the potential to release so much toxins. It relieves muscle adhesions, brings fresh blood to the area. It relaxes the fascia. Basically what I'm doing is I'm tenderizing people.
Yeah. And that's a really good way to describe it.
But I mean, that's ultimately really what it is. And everyone can use it because so many people store the tension in their neck and their muscle and the muscles in their neck and their back and their shoulders. And when you open it up and all that blood flows through, people feel better. You know, and I didn't think years ago that I'd be doing this much cupping. But I cup about 90% of my acupuncture patients.
Wow. And you move from the cupping into the acupuncture. Do you pick the same points, or do you pick points differently in each person?
Everyone gets an individualized treatment.
Okay. Because I noticed you were just like, I'm going to go here. And then you were like, I'm going to go here. And you like picked specific points out.
Well, the beauty of the medicine is it's art. And no two acupuncturists will practice the same exact way. There could be similar styles, but you know, I am a traditionally trained practitioner. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, so TCM style speaks to me. There's a few other different styles, so I like to have a few different tools in the toolbox, and you know, couple that up with cupping, and that's a really complete treatment, along with all the talking that I do with my patients. I talk to some of my patients for a good 45, 50 minutes, depending upon what they're going through. So, you know, you think about that, there's a lot that goes into each treatment. For me, to be able to put all that out there, you know, 8 to 10 treatments in a day, and like, that's it. That's all I have.
No, you have that beautiful space. You do some exploration. You ask some questions. Then you've got that intuition. I mean, you're sensitive. You can really hone in. And then I love the part when you're like, okay, I'm going to be back in a time period, 20 or 30 minutes, whatever that was. And you put the headphones on, and it was this relaxing, meditative. The tape that was playing, there was an audio to it and then some music to it, and it just allowed me to be in that beautiful space.
So those are binaural beats.
It's beautiful.
Binaural beats usually play 2 different tones, and one in each ear, and it affects the brain in a certain way where it calms it down, calms your nervous system down. To me, it's just one more component of the treatment. Yeah. Because I don't want people laying on the table counting my ceiling tiles. I want them to zone out, and the best way to do that is to just kind of train their brain or distract their brain in some way so that they start listening to something. It's either the binaural beats or a guided meditation, but either way, you know, if I just left them alone, most people would just think for a good 30 minutes. Yeah. That's not productive.
The monkey mind just goes wild at that point. Yeah.
Especially like if they're just starting their journey. So to be able to put the headphones on, it really allows people to sink into that deeper level, that deeper state of relaxation.
Oh, it was great. I mean, I literally remember thinking to myself, I can't feel my arms. I am really relaxed. And then as soon as I thought about it, then I could feel my arms. It wasn't like they were numb, but I just had that very meditative, relaxed state. I don't know, that hypnotic where you just feel relaxed. It was really blissful.
Yes, and I've had quite a few out-of-body experiences on the table. You know, I've gotten acupuncture hundreds, maybe thousands of times. Yeah. It's a beautiful medicine. Yeah. You know, it's a cumulative medicine, so for anyone who's curious about it, you need more than one treatment. But the fact that we can accomplish so much without any medication, it's totally natural, totally holistic. There's no side effects. As long as it's performed by a licensed acupuncturist, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love the Chinese medicine modality. I don't know enough about it, but the experiences I've had with it it's very earth oriented. It's very element oriented, and they put the human body into a space where it's connected to things. If you have this pain here, it's connected to this organ. If you have this feeling, it's connected to there could be a problem here. And they treat problems rather than the symptom of, oh, you have a headache, here's an aspirin, it'll make your headache go away.
Yeah, I mean, that is the when you compare Western and Eastern medicine, they are diametrically opposed in many ways. So we don't.
I would say diabolically opposed.
It's true.
Yeah.
And we don't treat allopathically. If you go to a doctor and for some reason he's doing acupuncture, he's going to use a point like here and say this is good for headaches. But if you go see a licensed acupuncturist, they're going to do a full intake. They're going to look at your tongue and pulse. They're going to start working on the root cause of why you're having the headaches.
Yeah.
And to me, it's so much better and worthwhile to treat the root, because while you're treating the root, you can also affect the symptoms, the branch. So yeah, there's a lot to the medicine itself.
Yeah, 3 years of worth on an accelerated program.
But even then, it's like you're only scratching the surface.
You just touched the first level,
Yeah, so there's,
Welcome to first grade, you're done, yeah.
I think it'll take me another 15, 20 years to say that I'm an advanced practitioner.
That's incredible.
Like I'm 5 or 6 years in and I'm like, well, there's some things I'm good at. There's a lot of things I really want to work on. And to me, that's the humility.
Yeah. Were you raised with a belief system? Did parents give you a system of belief, said this is the way the world is, or did you have freedom to explore?
That's a good question. I think that there was some rigid systems that were presented. I didn't really have my awakening until later in my 20s.
Were you given a religious context of the divine as this type of thing you have to please? I asked that because I was, so I'm interested in your experience.
I was raised Jewish, and so Judaism by and large has a level of spirituality to it. The way I was raised was a little too conservative for my liking, so it kind of turned me off in many ways, but it still allowed me to think about how there's a higher presence or a higher being instead of looking at it as a deity or a person or whatever. So I don't subscribe to any religion really. I would say that I'm spiritual, not religious. And I'd say I'm very spiritual, but I had to see for myself and experience for myself what has formulated my version of the way I see the universe. Yeah. And it is different than the way it was presented to me as a young child. Yeah. But I mean, that's the way it is. Some people never have an awakening. Some people stay within the rigid systems because it provides a sense of comfort. Yeah. It provides answers. It does. It's, understanding the universe means that you have more questions than answers. Oh, that's good. The beauty of Chinese medicine, just like the way I see the universe, is that some things just are. Okay, science wants us to be able to explain everything. And I think that for Western medicine, that's really important. Yeah. When it comes to understanding the bigger picture, like why are we here? What's your life purpose? We don't need to have an answer for that. And we shouldn't. Yeah. Because who knows? Yeah. I don't think we're supposed to know.
There's part of the mystery that if you let it remain mystery, it's really exciting. The thing about science or religion or politics is like, we're going to explain it to you and tell you exactly how it is. And then you're like, oh, well, even if I disagree with you, it just, you're telling me there's only one way and you're taking mystery out of it.
I think the beauty of where we've come from or where we're at in this point in time and how pervasive the internet is that we can challenge anything and anyone. Yes. Now, the pendulum has swung the complete other way, which is okay, because I feel like it's bound to find its neutral spot, and I talk about neutrality a lot, but this is a good time. You don't have to go to the library to figure something out. Absolutely. You ask Google, and all of a sudden you have 1,000 different answers. Yeah. It challenges all of the rigid systems that have made it this far. Yeah. Do I still think there's a place for, religion and stuff like that? Yes, I think that some people really want it and need it. Yeah. But even those people are still Google searching. Yeah. And they're still presented with information that might, plant a seed. Yeah. And then they might question something else. Yeah. So I think that this is a beautiful time to be alive. I understand that we have many challenges, but I choose to see the positives and all the potential that exists.
Yeah, no, I love that. This is awesome. It's a great time because you can do your research, you can find answers. And if you're looking for answers, you'll find them. And that's what I'm exploring on this human journey.
Yeah. You have to be the seeker.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you have to be the observer.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. So you've talked with so many people. What are some of the commonalities that you're finding that people are saying, hey, you know, I have this emotion, or I have this issue, or I have this question? Or what are some of those universal things that you see coming up over and over again?
You know, I wish that I can tell you that there's something universal, but that would detract from the subjectivity of each and every person's journey. You know, I treating emotions is one thing. I also treat a lot of pain. And you know, when I've seen with my patients that have a lot of lower back pain, is that there are commonalities emotionally with that. There's a lot of stress, lack of support, frustration, anger. And making people aware that some of the emotions that they're experiencing are creating physical issues for themselves.
Absolutely.
GI issues, IBS, Crohn's, autoimmune. There are emotional components to this. I've never sat in front of a patient that had any kind of digestive issue that didn't also have some kind of emotional challenge going on. Whether it was repressed or taking place in the moment, it didn't matter. And to me, the work is making them understand how they're feeling, what they're doing, and what it's creating for them internally, the environment that they're creating. Because it's, Western medicine is going to just give them pills. It's not going to give them the relief that they need. Them really working on themselves, working on presence, and that includes, having some kind of mindfulness practice, doing things on having a daily practice, day in and day out. Then they start seeing, oh, that's right, when I get a little upset, my stomach starts to bother me. Oh, when I get a little angry, my neck starts to seize up. Oh, when I'm feeling like no one's supporting me, my low back starts to hurt me. And then we can work with that. But until you have the awareness and the awakening that these things are creating these things, you can't detach. You can't change that. You can't create, and you certainly cannot improve it. You're just going to keep repeating it over and over again.
So Sweet Lady Gail's been reading The Secret Language of Your Body. It's talking about the pain that you feel in your body and some sort of an emotional context that comes with it. That is so important that people realize that emotions are so tied to the pain. And does acupuncture, does that seek the point? Does that turn it on, turn it off?
Acupuncture definitely can help with the experience and help, one of the biggest issues that we see is that things get stuck in the body.
Oh, yeah.
And there's an old adage in Chinese medicine, where there's pain, there's stagnation, and where there's stagnation, there's pain.
Oh, boy.
And one of our chief responsibilities as practitioners is to get the flow of qi, blood, all your fluids to flow properly. When your qi is flowing properly, health will flow. Okay, so, and that's why cupping is so important, because it just gets everything to start moving. But when someone's having an experience in their body, the most important thing that I do is I, first of all, get them to accept it more than anything, because we tend to get upset and resist the experience that we're having. And that just creates a loop where you get more of it. So first and foremost, we have to accept it for what it is. We have to watch our ego mind. Is it making us feel like it's never going to get any better, or it's always been like that? No, that's not true. So we have to learn how to set that aside as well. But getting into a state of acceptance, okay, this is happening, what do I need to do about it now? That is the way that we can work on these things, always. So when a patient comes in and is all wrapped up in their ailments, the first thing I do is say, I start peeling away the emotions that they have about it, the fear that they have about it, and making them so present with it so that they can see it for what it is. All it is it's an experience. It's your body trying to teach you something. It has a voice, and when you give it a voice, and when you speak to it, and when you work with it, eventually it'll go away.
That's good. So those things that you have energetically, I've been doing yoga teacher training, they're chakra energies. Chinese medicine talks about the qi energy. Is there any correlation? Are there different modalities?
Those are two different systems.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, acupuncture does have points on the chakras. But when you're in acupuncture school, they're not teaching you about chakras at all.
Totally a different modality, but you feel like there's some commonalities.
Of course. I mean, everything is energy. Qi is energy. Chi cannot be x-rayed or you can't see it under an MRI, but we've seen time and time again, acupuncture can affect it. You know, we use acupuncture needles and acupuncture points, and the acupuncture points create a physiological change in the body. We use multiple acupuncture points as basically like a formula, as if you're making a cake, to create some kind of change, to elicit your body to heal itself. You know, it's a beautiful thing when you actually see it for what it is.
Yeah, Sweet Lady Gail's been doing Qigong, and she's been feeling that Qi energy, and she's like, yeah, I can feel it between my hands. I'm like, really? That's fascinating to me. And I can't say that I've gotten to the point where I could feel it like a ball, but I have gotten to the point where I can feel my hands and start to feel like a little spark, if you will. Do you have the sensation of energy as you're doing modality with people, doing acupuncture or anything?
Yes, no, I definitely do. We learn Qigong and Tai Chi in school. So I'm very aware of how to feel my energy. One of the things that was really important when I started working with patients was how to have strong boundaries so that their energy stays with them and my energy stays with me.
That's
now,
awesome.
that might sound really metaphysical, but until you experience it for yourself, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I learned the hard way when I first started treating patients in school clinic, how you could be working on someone who had a really bad day and you could be fine. And then they leave and all of a sudden you're feeling exactly how they were feeling, but they feel better. So to me, it's all about energies on a gradient.
They got your good energy and you got their negative energy.
Which I mean is nice for them. And every now and again in clinic, it does happen to me, but I'm cognizant of it. And I do everything to kind of protect myself from it. You know, and some people could say, oh, that's really woo-woo. And, you know, I would have agreed with you 10 years ago saying that that's impossible, but it's happened to me. And I can't deny it. So I have to work really hard at having strong boundaries to say, this is yours and this is mine. I can be empathetic and understanding with what you're going through, but I cannot be sympathetic because I need to know the difference between the two, and I don't want to take on what you got going on because you're on your path, and I respect that.
You get your journey, stop interfering with mine. Yeah.
It's not even stop interfering. It's like, I understand the value in you working on whatever you're working on, and I would never want to take that away from you.
That's good. That's good. So as you are transitioning into more presence coaching, are you spending time on like coaching and creating works and doing projects? You know, what's kind of the future for Paul? Where are you heading to?
I'm in a transitory state right now where I feel like I've put a lot of good work into the podcasts, but it's time for me to transcend that model because I have an offering that has value. And I don't do everything for money, but there are certain things that I should be compensated for. So I'm putting together a system with modules, videos, workbooks. I've already started my book, and it's all in the works. I just try not to force myself in a present moment to do anything or create anything if I'm not feeling it. So if I feel like I'm in a transitory state right now, well, I'm going to honor that. If I feel like I don't necessarily want to be creating more podcasts, I'm not going to. It's really important that I honor my own presence. But I also see the bigger picture here. What I have to teach, the things that I have seen have value for a lot of people that I wouldn't necessarily be able to access in Scottsdale. So I need to put together an offering for the world. And you know, I'm seeing that start to come together. I just have to be very clear with what my intentions are, and you know, and with what I'm manifesting. More importantly.
That's awesome. So Above and Beyond Acupuncture, that's your working, come and see me business. And then areyoubeinpresent.com, that's your presence coaching.
Yes.
And in the scope of things, do you feel like you are in that flow? Do you feel like it's just a matter like a linear timeline, like you're at this point, but you're in that right trajectory?
If you read through Journey of Souls, you'll understand that the human mind, the human ego is only concerned with linear progression. So I honor that because we're in the third dimension and I have to like work with that.
Because I was born, I did some stuff, and then I died.
But I've also tried to see beyond the linear.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And just because that way everything is unfolding at the same time, so that I can start to access whatever's already been created, within my reality, within this universe. And that's, if you think about that, that's pretty heady, but that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, awesome. I'd love to give presents to the guests at the end of the episode. If there's this one thing you took away from today's conversation, I want you to take this away. So what is that thing that you want to make sure the viewer gets?
Here's the question for you. Are you being present? You need to ask yourself that day in and day out. You have to catch yourself. You have to watch the thoughts that flow through your head. And each and every one of them, you have to ask, does this thought have anything to do with the present moment? Am I being present? Does this feeling have anything to do? Is it relevant to what's going on in front of my face? If the answer is no, you have to be the observer and you have to start letting these things go. When new experiences open up in front of your face, the only thing you have to do is say, look, this is happening. What do we need to do about it now? And I know that's a lot for some people to remember, but that will alleviate a tremendous amount of self-inflicted suffering.
Beautiful. Paul Kerzner in the house. Dude, anything else before we wrap it up?
I guess I just want to remind people one more time that your ego is not your friend. This is a really important thing that I learned and I teach all the time. Be observant of the voice in your head. Do not let it control you, because it has nothing good for you. And if you allow it to control you, it becomes the CEO of your life. You're not even on the executive team at that point. You're a cog all the way down in the machine. So we want to empower you. Be the observer, be the watcher, be the listener. And that's, there's nothing more to life than that if you want to find some peace, some inner peace.
Awesome. If you're in the Scottsdale area, you're looking for a great acupuncturist, check out Paul's work. He's amazing. He's a great practitioner. He's very intuitive, and he's a healer. Paul, thanks for being part of my journey.
Thank you.
I'm David Marsh, and you've been watching Exploring the Human Journey on YouTube as a video and listening as a podcast. If you would like to help continue the conversation, please consider supporting us by visiting patreon.com, where you can support us on a monthly basis and get extra bonus content. For as little as $1 a month, you can make this show sustainable and help continue spiritual consciousness. You can also help by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information about the show, find us online at exploringthehumanjourney.com.